All right, I want to record where I've come in my understanding of Cakewalk, getting back into it for the first time in a long time. I'm going to start with a basic track, and it'll open that, and this is what it will look like. It'll have an audio and a MIDI. But I'm doing a procedure now that is a little bit unorthodox. I am not attached to any instruments at all. I'm using my mouse as the way to. I'm going to be using the mouse to do all of my entry of notes. And to do that, I am going to go to here where it says plugins. And so you see there's media, and there's plugins, and then there's notes. So I'm in plugins, but I'm going to go to this little insert virtual instruments tab over here because it starts with effects. And so when you come into it, it usually has audio effects first. So I'm going to go over here to this insert virtual instrument, and it comes with its own bass, its own drums, and its own piano, electric piano, and strings, but they're really not so good. So I've put in BBC Symphony Orchestra and Labs to get my instruments. So let me show you where you do that from. So if I go to BBC Symphony Orchestra, Spitfire Audio has it, and you need the Spitfire app. So it's free to have the BBC Symphony Orchestra, but you have to get the Spitfire Audio app. And that you download, and here is mine in here. And Spitfire Audio will show you what you've installed, and I've only installed the BBC Orchestra for that. I also have this thing called Labs, but it no longer is in Spitfire, so I had to go to that website, and you download that app, and then once you have that app, and I'll show you that I have that app on my computer, there's Labs, then you have both of these DAW libraries, and they're usually pretty expensive unless you go for free. And the free ones, like Intimate Grand Piano, I haven't got that one down, so let me grab that. I have ambient guitars. You can see I've got Mika's Choir. There's a lot of great stuff, and you can preview them. Right? I've got expressive strings, hyperpop synths. I don't really care for obsolete machines. There's some cool stuff in there. Classic synths, autograph grand, electronic, Gaelic voices. That could be pretty cool. So I'm going to download that. They do take some time to download, so be patient with it. Vintage drums has 2 sounds. So these are the ones that you want to start with as your free stuff. There's Los Atmos. Yeah, there's some cool stuff in there. So it'll prepare, and you want to download stuff from there. I'm going to do percussion as well. Pipe organ might be nice if we're going to do that sort of vibe. So yeah, some good stuff in there in Labs. And then there's Labs Plus, but Labs Plus costs. And I don't have the money. You have to upgrade to Labs Plus for that. But they got some great stuff in there, you know, like Epic Brass and Woodwinds. Neat to have that. And under the free, if you go down to Woodwinds, then there's Arctic Swells and Ulilan Pipes. So there's some cool stuff in there, and it's probably going to fail the downloads at this moment. But there's that. All right, so that's Labs. So the 2 ones are. So yeah, so that's what I recommend. BBC Symphony Orchestra, which uses Spitfire, and in Spitfire you will also see Labs, and you'll be directed to the new Labs download, and then you'll get your packs for that. Once you have those packs, they will show up under Synth as BBC Symphony Orchestra and Labs. So what you do is you can drag these over here into a track, and it'll say simple instrument track or instrument track per output. If you want to get the whole thing, then you might do instrument track per output, and then you get all of these here, and then you're not going to see what they are. It just says ST1, ST2, and all the way to ST16. But then when you click on them, you will see what they are, what they're made of. So strings violins 1 is ST1, and then ST2 is going to be, if you click on this part, string, looks like they're all strings violin 1. I hope they're not, but they might be. And if that's the case, yes, they are. Then you have to assign. So you're going to have to come in and say, all right, well, great. Strings violin 1 is fine for this first one. And you'd want to load that in, load piano in to make that piano. Now, when you click on this, you can see you have the piano. If you click on the next one, oh, by the way, and then you should really name it because you'll not remember. So maybe we click on here and we say piano BBC. Then on the next one, if you click on it, you would have piano there. Let's go forward. Strings, maybe you'll go with strings, long, staccato, pizzicato, or tremolo. I'll just do regular strings for this, and I'll have to then, so if you like that string sound, you better label that. And I don't like the way the interface doesn't make it easy to see what you have without labeling, because this is a pain to be always going in and labeling, but that's the way it is. Strings. All right. Similarly, if you wanted to get something else, you'd have to go, see, violas, cellos, let's say basses, we want to put that in. It's really up to you how you order them. It just will take you some time. So you do your setup with that. And what happens is if you pick that, like pick basses, and then go to views and piano roll, then you have, here's the basses. Whereas if you pick now on strings, sorry, that's weird. Stayed on basses. What happened to our piano? Oh, everything changed to basses. Okay, so there's something wrong going on here, and it may be the way that I brought this in, because if I go back to piano for this, and then close this by piano, but if I go to here now, we're all on piano. Okay, so clearly that was not the right way to go about it, and I'm going to have to erase all those and go back to the way I used to do it. So let me delete those 16 tracks. Then let's just do it like this. Let us go back to BBC Symphony Orchestra, drop it in, but this time do simple instrument track, and then we can assign this to be the piano. All right, we've assigned that. Put in piano here. Double click on that. Say piano. And we have piano. Now bring in another BBC Symphony Orchestra as a simple instrument track. And hopefully now, when we click on this and we say violins, then we can go back and forth between them. One of the little quirks, violins. So now we have violins, but when we go here, we have our piano successfully. So that is how you would use BBC Symphony. So you drop another one in as a simple instrument track and make this one to be the bass. There's the basses, and call it basses. And hopefully this will persist. So there's that bass. This one here is violins, and this one here is piano. All right, same thing with labs. You have to drag a labs thing in to a simple instrument track and then open up labs, see what you've downloaded. So I have, for example, bass guitar. I want to put that, I got this one here, or the warm bass, this bass here. And I'm probably going to go with a warm bass. So I select that as the warm bass and then double click in here and say warm bass labs. And then bring in another labs as you set up your track. And in this one, let's say that I want to have Mika's choir, sustained ooze, maybe? Choir. That's kind of cool, warp laments. So I'll use warp laments. And warp laments choir from lab 2. Right, but if we go to warm bass, we have that. Similarly, now when we have the basses for the BBC, right? And that basically is how you do your setup for this. And then you'd give a save and maybe call this basic setup for mouse input. All right. So now when you want to start your track, you would say, well, okay, let's start on a quarter note. Be careful here. You might see this off. You might see snap off like this. Whatever you select up here, if you have whole notes you want to put in, or if you want to put in half notes, it's going to reflect down here in the piano roll. And you'll only see the piano roll if you're in a track that allows you to enable MIDI input by your mouse. If you're up here selecting this one, which is an audio track, you say, why is that still showing the violin? Because that's still the piano roll for the violins down here. So when you close the piano roll view, and it's not closing. Maybe the best way to do that is do a different view, do the console view, because there's our console. This audio track, if you arm it, is an audio track which, as you can see, is recording my voice. So if I wanted to record and I enabled it here, you see me talking, singing, talking, singing, talking, singing, blah. All right, so that's there. And enabled it here, you see me talking, singing, talking, singing, talking, singing, blah. Now I have the metronome on. You can set the metronome from here, and that lets you decide if it's going to be during recording and playback. And then OK to that. Enable it here. You see me talking, singing, talking. So you're hearing it twice because I recorded my own metronome while I was recording. The MIDI track is going to be set up for the piano. When you go and you're on this track and you go to piano roll, it's not going to be anything related to this track. And so you're going to have to decide which piano roll view you want in here. Here you have violins, but there you have piano. So don't get confused about that. Now, when you're laying a track in here, what you do is you need to bring this back so you can see your mute buttons. Otherwise, they disappear, as you can see. And if you do that, you'll find them again, but then you don't have much space to work in. So be aware of that. That confuses people sometimes, that you got to adjust these windows to be able to see those things. And now if we wanted to go and do a baseline. All right. So if we wanted to do an arpeggio, then we could go back to the beginning of the track, and let's see what we're set at 120 beats per minute in 4/4 time. And you could record, but this is what I'm saying about I enter stuff with the pencil tool, which is this one here, draw, but I use smart most of the time, and it knows most of the time what it should do. And so if I pick A3 and I'm on a, if I want to go bum 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 1 2 3 4, then I'm using eighth notes, so it can be reflected up here or down here. And you probably want to use your snap resolution so you can see it. So turn that on, but it doesn't do anything until this one is turned on. And then it tells you what the resolution lines look like. So if you have whole notes, then you're going to get different resolution than if you have eighth notes, but that still doesn't show up down here. So you've got to go to quarter triplet here and decide, do you want to see half notes, in which case each of these lines is a half note, or do you want to see quarter notes, or do you want to see eighth notes, and you see more lines there. So that's pretty critical for when you're drawing stuff in with a pen, as I'm doing. So if I now go to the A here, and I'm on an eighth note, then I'll have an eighth note. If I want to do a quarter note, I pick a quarter note, and you'll see now when I put this into the A, there it is. That is a quarter note looked at in eighth note snap resolution. So it's taking up two of those. One. And then if I want to go bum, bum, two, bum, bum. So one, and then if I go and put it into an eighth note, then bum, bum, and then so then you have, you can stretch it out if you want to make it from an eighth to a quarter, and then listen back. Negative here, you see me, and I need to mute this or get rid of this. I certainly don't need that. All right, so let's go back. Right. Now, there's a looping function if you want to hear back what you're doing over and over, and that looping function is here, and you can set what you want the loop to be. So let's bring this to here, and then let's see. And then we see that the eighth note is actually too short. This should be a quarter note. Okay. And note that if you wanted to get into triplets, da, 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 if you wanted to do that, let's do the second one. You go to an eighth note triplet down here, and it breaks it up into 3 per, which makes it a lot easier to draw stuff in. So if I go to eighth note triplet like this, that's the note that's going to come in. And so for my next bar, I'm going to do the, oops. And I need to drag this back. And then bring this. That, 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 that. And then let's go to a whole note, get rid of the triplet, come out here. And make our loop out to here. That's actually wrong. Shouldn't be that. Let's try and make this a little longer. All right, so you can get those divisions from here and look at even 16th notes, and really begin to draw in what you want to play. If I want to put in violins here, you can see that the violins can be put on top of, oh, it should be, used to be, you could see what it looked like. I'm not seeing the other notes for whatever reason. So let's see. Just put an A and let's put in a long whole note A. And notice what it did there. It defaulted to the last note I did. So even though I put in a quarter there, it defaults to whatever I put in. So if I go, if I do another one, it should stick to. And let's make that out to there. So it keeps defaulting back there for some reason. I do not know why. Let's go back here, try to make that be. And we need another bass note down there for 301. And make it out there. So it's basically just that. And you can write entire songs just using your mouse, putting in different things. If I wanted to put in warp laments in here, then I could just go in and add that track. So let's add an E on that. Now why is that? I'm really just painting. Let's see. That's too long. So without understanding musical notation, you can play around until you get the sound you want. And make these as long or as short as you want. So that's what I like about BandLab's Cakewalk and using the BBC and Labs to add various things to it. And those are the things I would pay attention to. If you want to have grid lines that you can follow, then use the right click on these. You can set your triplets, you can set any different dotted notes that you want in there. So you can see, here's a dotted note coming in there. You can see what you want to add. You can stretch them, you can squash them, you can add a triplet there, you can add a dotted note there. If I put a quarter note dotted and I go to here, then I have the quarter dotted note that I put in there. So play around with that. Get to know the difference between a quarter note and a quarter dotted by simply adding them in. You can then see the differences between these notes, and you can really learn your music. You see that that is an eighth note, and this one is a quarter, and you can see the relationship between them visually. So for learning music, I think this is a great way for beginners to get an appreciation playing around with painting music. And then if you don't like the sound like that, you can always move. Okay. So get used familiar with that and see what you can come up with. And have fun. It's a whole lot of fun when you go to export. You'd probably want to look at the console view, and then you can see if the volumes are set up to your liking. You can play with those views. Because, for example, the bass should be much louder, and here you would it's funny, you can't really look out, make these bigger. That's the warm bass slabs. Bring the bass up and bring everything else down. Make sure that that's the one by soloing it. And I don't think it is. Oh, it's not. So it wasn't that one. So where is the bass? Is it this one? The bass is this one, bass 6. I click it there and you'll see it there. So that is not quite loud enough. And a couple of ways that you can change volume besides using this master fader is if you go back to the piano roll, you have these velocities down here which you can bring up by drawing them up. So you bring up your velocities and then it should be a bit louder just by drawing it like that. Alright, so those are the views. That's what beginners like me generally do. We use the piano roll view, we use the console view for mixing. Haven't done many of the other views. Obviously track view is that alone, and then get your piano roll or get your mixer console. And there's a whole bunch of other views. I mean, there's event list if you want to see the velocities in the data. 127 is the loudest that it goes, and you can see the duration of each of the notes, the kind of the actual note on the piano, and what track these things are in. So you'll have this information when you look at that view, the event manager. Look at the next track, and you can see the next track, track 7, what it has in it. And I believe these are, yeah, they're all editable. So there's a lot of ways to edit in this program, which is just marvelous. And if you really want to slow stuff down, by the way, then you can just change the tempo here. So we cut it in half to 60 BPM, and then we have it much. using the tempo. You can change if it's a 3/4 waltz or it's a 4/4 time thing. Those are my basic uses of Cakewalk. And just keep adding VSTs if you want to. All right, I guess I've got everything recorded that I want to keep in mind so I don't get lost again. And if this is helpful to you, great. Thanks, bye.